Welcome back to BT on a Friday morning. We're going to talk about some interesting topics right now, serious stuff as we look at police brutality on the rise in the wake of these protests going on in the wake of George Floyd's death and what we can do about making police more accountable. We're going to bring in SFU's Adil Iskander right now. He's an expert on this kind of thing. Welcome to BT.
Hi, thanks for having me, Thor. Appreciate it.
Yeah, let's get right into this right now. The latest video that was circulating last night on Twitter, shocking video in Buffalo, New York, of a 75-year-old man pushed to the ground. He appears to be returning a helmet or saying that he found it, and it was a completely unprovoked attack. The police move in. 2 officers are suspended. They're launching an internal investigation, but this is just the tip of the iceberg with these kind of videos. Are we seeing police brutality on the rise, or are we just capturing it on video more?
Well, I think it's probably a combination of the two. At this particular juncture in time, we have protests spilling into the streets across the United States, which means that the encounter or the confrontation between both protesters and police is at a sort of a meteoric kind of level. Mm-hmm. So it's also a circumstance where the police forces are trying to showcase their control of the streets. This is a real sort of battle over public space. And police feel, I mean, there's this really odd relationship whereby the police are trying to enforce the quote-unquote law, but the laws themselves are heavily favored in support of the police. So this level of impunity is something that has been systemic and structural, and we've seen this for generations, particularly in the United States. If we're looking at this video, this is a video of a 75-year-old white man being treated this way. You could only imagine the kind of treatment that people of color who are, systematically racialized would be treated. And this is happening right in front of City Hall. Mm-hmm. So this is in front of the eyes and ears of the media and other individuals who are trying to document it. This level of impunity is real and it's extensive, but the documentation is critical for both retribution and accountability moving forward.
When we look at the differences between America and Canada, are officers more accountable north of the border here in Canada than in the States?
In all frankness, it's difficult to sort of gauge this. There are, of course, rules, regulations, laws that prohibit the use of force, the excessive use of force. But at the same time, we're seeing situations here across Canada where communities, particularly communities of color, whether Indigenous or Black, are treated in a very heavy-handed way. There's one statistic that's circulating quite widely nowadays, whereby if you're a Black person in Toronto, you're 20 times more likely to face a fatal act of violence by the police. In Nova Scotia, for instance, one of the oldest Black communities in Canada, in Halifax, you're 6 times more likely to be carded by the police. So there's definitely a racialization that's happened there. And of course, there are 2 cases that are currently being investigated where two First Nations women have lost their lives in the past week and a half at the hands of interventions that may have been excessive on the part of the police. So we have a problem here. It may not be at the same scale, but it certainly should not belie the fact that it requires the same level of accountability, the same level of investigation. We have to be vigilant because, a police force that has too much empowerment can sometimes tip over in the direction of impunity and reinforcing the existing problems. The example from the United States that we're witnessing today is that, the show of force on the part of the police to try and subdue the protest is only reinforcing the reason why the protests exist. I mean, you're looking at footage happening just now. I mean, this is new footage, and it very much resembles the kind of treatment that George Floyd, received that instigated all this. The knee on the neck, the wanton use of force and violence, tear gas. This is the kind of footage that we have grown accustomed to from authoritarian, tyrannical states, and so now the lens is being turned around. The mirrors in the face of the American policing system. And of course, there's the deployment of federal police, of National Guard, of state patrols. These are individuals who are not connected to the community. They have no reason to feel a sense of connection to these individuals. So that's another layer of impunity and potential kind of systemic racism and problematic. So things are getting out of hand.
Right.
They're being documented because there are more people in the streets, more cameras, more eyes, more lens, more media. But the problem is also growing exponentially.
All right, complex issue there. I wish we had more time to chat, but we have to leave it there. We thank you so much for your time, Adil.
Thanks for having me, Thor. Cheers.
All right, take care. Hopefully we can connect soon. That's Adil Askander from SFU.